From punching out an equipment manager and even cussing out a team's GM, to throwing soup at a coach and even literally breaking a teammate's face, insane moments have come out of NBA locker rooms.
And one time, bro, Shaq, shoot around. Without fighting. This is week. Shaq put Lou's mouthpiece in his tights and put it up underneath his nuts.
What? With so many different personalities, so many instances of competition, and so many people needing to be an alpha, you can only expect that these locker rooms would have insane meltdowns. But which locker room had the worst meltdown of them all? One player who at one point was one of the best players in the league had a drug addiction so bad that he made an elaborate plan to end his coach's life. It got to the point where to get this plan done, the player started associating himself with known gang members, and he only didn't go through with the plan because his mom caught him in the act. In other situations, emotions can run so high that players can get into massive fights, even to the point where it can change a team forever, which is exactly what happened to this promising Chicago Bulls squad.
Violence on the court. One Bulls player punched in the face and sent to the hospital, the other suspended.
In late 2017, the Chicago Bulls were going through a total rebuild after a disappointing season full of dysfunctionality.
Man, I want to play with guys that care, man, that play hard, that want to do well for this organization.
It pisses me off, but I can't be frustrated and I can't care too much for these guys. They got to care for themselves. So.
The previous season, a promising team had quickly broken down into petty public callouts, social media rants, and resulted in their star players being traded or bought out. However, heading into the new season, the previous season's culture of dysfunction was still going strong. And this was seen when a massive fight broke out between two of the team's promising young players.
You had the incident your second year with Nikola Mirotic, where you guys got in a fight.
And that wasn't our first time doing that as well. Everybody did that on the Bulls.
On October 17, 2017, Bobby Portis and Nikola Mirotic got into a violent scuffle where Portis knocked the hell out of Mirotic. Leading up to the fight, the two had been trash talking and shoving each other, but the situation became heated enough where Portis rocked Mirotic with a punch to the face. This blow knocked Mirotic out cold, gave him a concussion, made him lose several teeth, and broke his jaw. In the aftermath of this punch, Mirotic was hospitalized and missed weeks of action, and Portis was suspended for 8 games as punishment. Mirotic obviously was never willing to reconcile the situation and was traded away mid-season. And as crazy as the situation was, it could still be put off as a one-time emotional thing. However, this wasn't the case because years after the fight, Portis revealed that scuffles like these weren't uncommon in the Bulls locker room, and it was basically the Bulls culture. And while in locker rooms, it can make sense that fights like these can occur between players, it's more uncommon to see physical fights between staff and players. However, this was exactly what happened in the case of Blake Griffin. On January 23, 2016, Blake Griffin and an assistant equipment manager named Matthias Testis got into a heated argument at a Toronto restaurant. This argument ended up in Blake Griffin punching Testis multiple times, and Blake was suspended with a 4-game suspension. And to add insult to injury, Blake, who had already been sidelined with an injury, broke his hand by punching Testis and was sidelined for even longer. However, as bad as this incident was, all parties involved were able to settle the situation quietly and publicly said there were no issues. And for the most part, this incident seemed to be a one-time thing. However, for the 2000s Portland Trailblazers, their situation was definitely not a one-time thing.
Timeout LA. Whack! Get out!
In the early 2000s, the Portland Trailblazers were so dysfunctional and so turbulent that they earned the nickname the Jailblazers. Because while this squad had plenty of talent, it also had plenty of off-court arrests, suspensions, and infighting. In one situation, a young Zach Randolph got into a scuffle with Ruben Patterson, who was 10 years his senior.
Man, pick me up, bro, like this, and throw me on my back.
Like WWE.
In the middle of the locker room, both of them started to wrestle, where Patterson, who was known for his strength, started to manhandle Randolph. Patterson slammed Randolph into lockers, threw him around the room, and even slammed Randolph on the floor to prove a point. And this incident didn't end there because Randolph got his revenge a few months later. During a team practice, Patterson got into an argument with another teammate named Quintel Woods. When the argument got heated, Randolph went to defend Woods and ended up punching Patterson in the face, breaking his eye socket. This obviously caused all-out mayhem as the two were forcibly separated, and Randolph, who actually believed Patterson would find him and shoot him, hid in a teammate's house for a few days. And as crazy as this incident was, it was only a small part of an incredibly dysfunctional Jailblazers team.
Is that really what I look like, man? I need to lose weight immediately. That is really, really bad, dude.
Sean Kemp, who had been traded to the Blazers, had to check himself in drug rehab. Ruben Patterson, who had been a controversial signing, was registered as a sex offender. Rasheed Wallace, at one point, was suspended for 7 games because he threatened a ref outside of a game, and to top it all off, multiple players were cited for various marijuana possession charges. The Blazers could not keep out of trouble, and to top it all off, even the fans didn't have their back. This was mainly due to the lack of team success and constant negative media coverage of the team, but what didn't help was that some players had open negative attitudes toward the fans. For example, Bonzi Wells at one point openly said that he didn't care what the fans thought about him, stating that they can boo us every day, but they're still going to ask for our autographs. That's why they're fans and we're NBA players. All these things combined resulted in fan attendance dropping, many players being traded or let go, and management being completely changed, all to do something to get out of the dreaded Jailblazers era. However, as crazy as the Jailblazers were, none of the players were crazy enough to actually choke out their coach. However, Latrell Sprewell was.
Spree just took the ball, he just dropped it, he just walked over to PJ, grabbed him around the neck, and he was like a crazed animal at that time, so he never let go of PJ's neck.
While Latrell Sprewell today is mainly known for choking out his coach, initially he was known more for his play than anything else. From his debut with the Warriors in 1993 to right before the great chokeout of 97, Sprewell had already made the All-NBA first team, the All-NBA defensive second team, and was a 3-time All-Star. However, outside of one season, Sprewell's Warriors had records so bad that they didn't even sniff the playoffs. Because of this, the Warriors org started to look for a change and replaced their coach Rick Adelman with PJ Carlesimo. And PJ from the start set a completely different tone to Adelman. While Adelman had a reputation as someone who was softer on players, PJ as a coach was known as hard-nosed, unbending, and very hard on his players. PJ was an old school coach that believed that the game should be played his way, and to achieve this, he was known for riding his players, cursing and yelling at them to the point where some people considered it borderline abusive. And the Warriors organization was all for this. At one point, they even ran an ad campaign with the slogan, "No more Mr. Nice Guy," having PJ pose in a leather jacket and sunglasses. However, as much as the Warriors organization and some of its fans were all for this, the Warriors' best player, Sprewell, was not. Most of the time, Sprewell actually had a reputation as a quiet guy and hard worker. However, he also had a few cases of intense volatility when people pushed him too hard. One of these incidents was when Sprewell got into an argument with his teammate Jerome Kersey. During a practice, Sprewell and Kersey got into a heated argument where they both had to be separated. Sprewell, after being separated, left the court, but this wasn't to calm down, it was to get a 2x4 to threaten Kersey with. With Sprewell's volatility and PJ's aggressive coaching, the situation could only be a recipe for disaster. Even from the beginning, PJ would bench and find Sprewell for multiple incidents, and as the Warriors also kept losing, the tension between the two would just keep stacking up until one day it exploded. During a random team practice, Sprewell was doing a standard passing drill when PJ singled him out, berating him for his lack of effort. When Sprewell warned PJ to leave him alone, PJ almost took that as a challenge and continued to berate him. Because of this, Sprewell lost it and rushed PJ, literally choking him out. And the whole time, Sprewell kept saying, quote, "I'm going to kill you." However, this incident didn't just end there, because after the two were separated, 20 minutes later, Sprewell rushed PJ again and punched him in the chest and jaw. When this incident got out, it obviously received national attention, and because of this, the NBA suspended Sprewell for an entire season, he lost his lucrative Converse sponsorship, and the Warriors even attempted to void his entire contract. Sprewell, for the rest of his life, could never escape this incident, and even though he went to have a few solid years with the Knicks and other orgs, Sprewell could never escape the negative perception as a coach choker, which was similar to the situation of NBA legend Spencer Haywood.
So, you back on the team of what?
The hit is on. Well, ice these motherfuckers when they back from Philly.
Oh, hell yeah!
Now, for any team chasing a title, they go through many hardships or difficult situations, but for the 1980 Lakers, they are the first and probably only team that had to deal with a literal murder plot. Spencer Haywood, who at one point was one of the best players in the league, had joined a soaring Lakers team that was on its way to a championship. However, unfortunately for Haywood, during his time on the Lakers, he developed a full-blown drug addiction. At the time when Haywood joined the Lakers, the entire team had a culture of intense partying, with the owner Jerry Buss even having an incredibly popular club in the arena that the Lakers played in. In these parties, drugs and women ran rampant, and Haywood very much indulged himself. And during the 1980 NBA Finals, Haywood's drug addiction reached a point of no return. The night before a team practice, Haywood went on an all-out bender, staying up all night doing drugs. Because of this, during practice, Haywood kept falling asleep and at one point literally knocked out on the court during team stretches. Because of this, he was kicked out of practice by Lakers coach Paul Westhead, but it didn't end there as Haywood got into more trouble after Game 2 of the finals. Haywood, who was still high on drugs, got into an over-the-top argument with teammate Brad Holland. The reason? It was all because Brad wouldn't pass Haywood a tape cutter. This outburst didn't sit well with teammates and staff who all sided against Haywood, and it got to the point where team owner Jerry Buss and coach Westhead saw the drugged out Haywood as too much of a liability and suspended him for the rest of the finals. This decision sent Haywood on a drug-fueled rampage, and he blamed the team for being traitors. However, there was no one else that Haywood blamed more than coach Westhead. This was because prior to Haywood's suspension, he had actually pleaded to Westhead for help with his addiction. But according to Haywood, Westhead's reply had been, quote, "I've got you now, I've finally got you." Haywood interpreted the statement as the coach seeing an opportunity to punish or even scapegoat him rather than support him. Because of this, when Haywood was suspended, he saw Westhead as a mastermind behind the suspension, and when leaving the arena in a drug-fueled rage, the only thought in his mind was that, quote, "Westhead must die." Because of this, Haywood contacted an old gangster friend from Detroit, and together they created a plan to end Westhead's life. This plan was that later on they would sneak up to Westhead's hilltop home and sabotage his car's brakes. The two would then wait for Westhead to drive his car, and when he did, they would run him off the road and Westhead would fall off a cliff. And Haywood was extremely close to enacting this plan, even obtaining Westhead's address. However, out of all people, he was stopped at the last second by his mom. On the night that Haywood was going to enact this plan, Haywood's mom just happened to call him. His mom, sensing that something was wrong, ended up asking Haywood, "Boy, what the hell are you up to?" These words actually snapped Haywood out of his drug-fueled haze, and he decided not to go through with his murder plot, which thankfully might be the only time in NBA history that someone needs to reconsider that, because literally trying to end your coach's life with a convoluted drug-induced plan is the most insane NBA locker room meltdown of all time.
Oh, I love
Corn clap videos.
Dude, you like
corn clap videos.
him. Bro, I knew I liked you, dude. Come here, bring it in.